Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Niagara Hockey Coaches Seminar, our webinar series. My name's Murray Nystrom. I'm one of the four, founders of the Niagara Hockey Coaches Seminar, along with Wes Wolf, Greg Capillero, and Wayne Chapman. We do hope everybody is staying safe in these strange times we find ourselves navigating through. Hopefully, with everybody following appropriate measures, we can get back to some sort of normal as soon as possible. In the meantime, we're excited about bringing some hockey talk to everybody, and really appreciate everybody who's registered for this webinar here this morning. Before we move into the presentation, just a couple notes. One of the things we do in our live seminar that we normally host every year is we collect dry food items for the local food bank. And as much as we talk and stress about sharing ideas about hockey and learning and challenging each other, we also try to keep a bit of a social perspective. So while we can't collect those food items through the webinar series, we're just going to encourage everybody to take a look around your local setting and support whatever charity you feel could best use some help in your community, and best appreciate that. So our presentation today should run about 50 minutes or so. It's going to be set up a little differently than some other presentations. We're going to break it up a little into segments. We'll have two intermissions, so to speak, for a bit of Q&A that I'll moderate and present the questions. And we're hoping a little change in the format there will keep everybody engaged. We've got a great topic here, and I think everybody's going to find it very engaging. With that, I want to introduce Dan Stewart. Stewie's goalie coach for the Sioux Greyhounds in the Ontario Hockey League. We're really excited about his topic here today: head coaches, goalie coaches, and goalies. I think as coaches, we're all trying to maximize the performance of our players, and Stewie's going to touch base on that dynamic that involves head coaches, assistant coaches, goalie coaches, and of course the goalies, and just some of the things that can help make that dynamic run a little more smoothly, and what influences that dynamic. Communication is such a key component, and I know he'll touch base on that as well. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dan Stewart, and enjoy the presentation.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're well today and safe. Thank you very much, Murray, and Wes for setting all this stuff up. It's greatly appreciated during these times. So what I'm going to do is start here by sharing my screen, and we'll get things going on this. So as Murray mentioned, my presentation here is on head coaches, goalie coaches, and goalies. And just a bit of a background on myself. I've been an OHL goalie coach since 2016 until now with the Sioux. I worked with UOIT at the U Sports level from 2016 to 2019. I had two NCAA Division I coaching jobs at Fairfield University and then with St. Lawrence University. And at the OJHL with the Cobourg Cougars from 2009 to 2016. And then I also worked with the Provincial Women's Hockey League with the Durham West Lightning from 2013 to 2018. So one of the things that I'm most proud of with respect to my goalie coaching experience is I don't bounce around. I've been with one team at each of the levels that I've been at, with the exception of NCAA, and that was because the program at Fairfield University actually closed. So I hold a lot of value in the fact that I've been able to stick with teams for long stretches and that they appreciate having me around. So the outline to what we're going to go over today, we'll start with the head coach and goalie relationship, then the head coach and goalie coach relationship, basically what I value in a goalie, so kind of the things that I look for when scouting a goalie, the goalie and goalie coach relationship, and then just some statistics and analytics that I use to try and help remove environment from goalie performance. So usually when I do this presentation, it's in a personal setting. It's live, and I start with this video. And I do recommend that everybody search it. If you just look up backwards bike video, it comes up. And what it is, it's a video of a guy who's an engineer, and in his shop, they rig a bike so that when he turns to the left, the bike goes to the right. And when he turns to the right, the bike goes to the left. And basically, you can't ride it. You have to relearn how to ride a bike in order to do this. And it shows how we're often stuck in our learning, and the things that we've learned up to date that are just hammered in there can negatively affect our ability to learn other things going forward. The game of hockey is adapting at an ever-changing rate, and it's really important that we are able to learn new things going forward. And sometimes that means we have to let go of what we've learned in the past in order to excel going forward in the future. One of the cool things about this video is his son was able to learn to ride the bike much quicker than he was. And just shows that kids are less stuck in their learning than we are as adults, the more we learn. And the only other thing I want to add on this video is since it's been posted, they've learned that people who can fly remote control airplanes actually can do the backwards bike quite easily, because they're used to being in a scenario where when the plane flips upside down, left is right, right is left, down is up, and up is down. So why are we here? Oh, sorry, I just need to move my screen here so I can read this easier. So goaltender is a unique position in hockey and therefore requires specialized coaching. Due to this, many times issues come up for coaches, goalies, and goalie coaches. So when I was a kid, there were very few goalie coaches involved in the game. My first real goalie coach I had came at the OHL level. So I went from basically 4 years old right through till 17 years old without much assistance. And that's very different today. And because of that, the role between the goalie coach, and the head coach has changed substantially as well. So what is our goal? The goal here is to manage the communication gap that often exists between head coaches, goalie coaches, and goalies. We can make the chain run more smoothly. So I look at it that we have a basic chain where it's the goalie coach, the assistant coaches, and the head coach. And it all needs to loop together and run in a way that we can help develop the goalies in a way that's the best for the team environment. So what makes goaltenders different? Well, we've got the gear, right? So just the fact that they have different skates, they have different gloves, they have different helmets, everything's just different. The small numbers, there's only 2 or 3 on a team out of the 20 or 25 players. The movement, the skills, the language, we talk about RVH, we talk about VH, we talk about all these different things, windmill saves that goalies use in everyday language that nobody else on the team does. They play a position where everything is in front of them. They can see it all coming at them. They're very rarely chasing. Every single goal is on them. That just is when you're a goalie. Every single time the puck enters the net, you are the one that it's going by to go in. They have a different game preparation. You look at the mental side versus the physical side. It is quite different for a goalie than the other players, and we have to respect that. They have their own coach, often private and with the team. This is something that I find as we move along in the evolution of goalie coaching with kids developing so much with a private goalie coach at home, becomes more and more of a factor. It's important that the goalie coach on the team and the private goalie coach and the goalie all are working together in order to make sure that that goalie is doing things in a way that works for all the people involved. Too many times there tends to be a bit of a gap there where the private goalie coach is stressing one thing, the team goalie coach who sees the goalie play all the time is stressing another, and the goalie is then getting conflicted information, which doesn't work. So the head coach and goalie relationship, what potential issues arise, what causes them, and most importantly, how do we fix them? And just Murray mentioned it in the introduction, the key to all of this is communication. So why do coaches avoid goaltenders? Not very many coaches have played the position, so goaltending is very foreign to them, and they're very uncertain of what they can and can't say to the goalie. They don't want to rock the boat. There's this stigma that if you do approach goalies about something, that you're going to rock the boat. Again, goalies have their own coaches, which we talked about before, and goalies are weird. This is one that gets thrown out a lot. As a goalie, I kind of understand it, but also don't, because while we are in a different position and we do look at the game slightly differently, we are just human. So goalies are human. Each quality head coach manages humans. If you take the position away and look at the goalies as humans, you're going to have more success dealing with your goalies. It's very simple. If you talk to your players a certain amount of time, talk to your goalies that much. The more you treat them just like humans and accept that they have human issues, the easier it will be to manage. So I talked to a few goalies that I've worked with over the last few years about what they want from their head coach. And right away, first thing they mention, and this is going to come up over and over, communication, communication, communication. They want time to work on their game. Now, one of the key things here as a goalie coach is to recognize that the sun doesn't fall and set on the goalies with respect to the team. They're not everything. They're a part of the team. So there are times where you will not get the amount of time that you feel you need to work on their game with them. And it's important to understand that you have to make sure it works within the full team dynamic. You can't go in and just pound the table and demand this and that. You have to make sure you're working within the structure of the team to get what you want. You need to make sure your voice is heard, but accept that there is a team goal at play here that you have to make sure what you're trying to do falls within. Drills that don't just treat them like targets. Again, in practice, it's important that goalies are able to work on their game, but also important to realize that there are times where shots are going to come a little bit more quickly paced than we'd like, but we want to keep it in mind that the goalies, if the drills are spaced out and the pucks are shot at a rate that allows them to not just feel like targets, it's going to be good for them too. They want their hard work to be noticed. A lot of times in practice, I find coaches get little snippets of the goalie because they're just turning their head left and right. They're watching the whole drill and they just see one little snippet of a goalie, and that ends up being their perception for the whole practice. So what can happen is we get off the ice as a staff and somebody mentions that particularly they had a tough day. And in my head, I thought they had a good day, but it's because I'm watching more of their reps and more than just little snippets. I'm watching the whole picture. And I think it's important for coaches to not make snap judgments on those little snippets, but to make sure they watch for a little bit of a longer period in order to give a fair assessment of whether the goalie had a rough day or whether they were working hard or lazy, etc. They want a fair assessment of their performance, which may differ from team result. This is huge because it's important to recognize that a goalie can sometimes lose 5-2 and be amazing, and other times we can win 5-2 and actually be subpar. A good example of this for me, I actually had a goalie one year have a 5-0 shutout in the first game back after Christmas, and I thought they were terrible. They had 3 pucks hit the crossbar in the first period that beat them from the top of the slot on clear sight scenarios. And while they got the result of a shutout, I didn't think the game was strong at all. Similarly, I've had times where a goalie has been pulled with the score, say 4-1 midway through the second period, and they've actually been performing quite well given the scenarios they've been put in. It's important that we have that assessment of the scenario the goalies have been put in and how they've performed in those scenarios, not just focus on the result. And they want to make sure that there's a positive environment. I think this goes for all players. The more positive the environment that a head coach can create, the better off we are. So communication. I believe that goaltenders need to know their role on the team and be updated when it changes. So sometimes we head into a season and there's a little bit of uncertainty as to where each goalie sits on the totem pole. And if it is uncertain, it is uncertain, but I believe that should be communicated to the goalies. If one goalie is the starter and the other goalie is the backup, I believe that should be communicated to the goalies. And if there is any change in that, again, I believe it should be communicated to the goalies because it takes uncertainty out of the picture for them and lets them know where they stand. I mentioned this earlier, but we should talk to the goalies with similar frequency as the other players. I find a lot of times coaches will not do that, and it allows the goalies to isolate within themselves, which isn't positive all the time for team success. Spell out expectation clearly to the goalies. Who skates on game day, who stays out late, all those things are critical things that can change within each team given what the head coach wants. And I think it should be spelled out to the goalies and made very clear. And then they should be held accountable to sticking to it. Give goalies constructive feedback about performance that is realistic and not emotionally fueled. Sometimes that means it has to wait. And I compare it kind of to like a marriage where there are times where you cannot just fire off about something while you're emotionally fueled due to the result of a game. A lot of good things come from scaling it back a little bit, waiting, and then dealing with it with calmer heads. Goaltenders need to know the plan for starts. And there are times, again, where they show the coach that they're incapable of that. And I guess I get that. I don't necessarily agree with it. But I believe that coaches should be consistent in the way that they deliver who is going to start the next game or the plan for the weekend going forward or whatever. And then it's on the goalies to understand that those plans are just plans and it's hockey and they're always subject to change. And if they are going to be changed, it'll be communicated to you as to why it's been changed. So just some key phrases to avoid here. The first one is a huge pet peeve for me. I don't know anything about goaltending. The number of times I hear a head coach say this, and then within 24 hours, they're going at me about a goal that went in or about how great the other team's goalie played or whatever. At the end of the day, you're a head coach. You know plenty about goaltending. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. I feel like I don't know anything about goaltending is a huge cop-out. And I believe that head coaches have learned plenty about goaltending over the years, and they can continue to learn more about goaltending. And if they do, and they stop using this type of statement, it's going to help everybody in the long run. I need a save there. Again, while I understand the sentiment, I don't think I've ever heard a coach go up to a player when they have a shot from the slot and say, I need that to go in. So for me, if you're unwilling to do one, you shouldn't be willing to do the other. I don't care what you do, just stop the puck. Again, I hear this one a lot. And I don't know very many coaches that are actually okay with, say, their goalie going out till 4 a.m. and then showing up the next day and being successful, because that type of behavior isn't good for the overall team environment, and it's sending a bad message to every other person on the team. And I think it's important that goalies don't receive that messaging. I need one of those saved. Again, I understand it from a coach's perspective that if 2 goals in a row go in and the game goes from 2-1 in our favor to 3-2 not in our favor, but we have to look at like what happened on each of those plays. And if at the end of the day, the goaltender was in a scenario where it was extremely difficult to impossible, to just say, I need one of those saved is unfair, in my opinion. Why did he or she go down there? This one, for the key phrases, I asked a few different goalie coaches and they came up with these. And this one came up on everybody's list. And I think the key here is changing the language, because generally what the coach means when they ask why somebody went down on a scenario is, why did they commit? So the key is goalies can commit whether they're on their feet or down. And if you're committing early on a play, you've made a mistake. And that just is. Your first goal as a goalie is to make sure you make the shooter commit. And if you've committed down or up, that's your mistake. It's not about whether you go down, it's that you've committed. So how do we utilize goalies in practice? I believe a proper warm-up is very important for goalies. And I think it's often overlooked. And we get out on the ice and it's just wham, bam, bam, and we get going. I think in many scenarios, it should include the goalie coach, even if it's just 5 minutes where they get out there and the goalies get to work their pivots and stuff. It's very valuable to the goalie to not just get thrown into the heat of practice and have pucks whizzing by their ear. Make sure they practice how they play. This one for me is massive. I can't stand it when a goalie is just standing there and pucks are either just hitting them or whizzing by them. I think it's critical that we practice how we play and that our goalies are held accountable to that. If it's a game day skate, the goalie who's playing may practice a little differently, but in my opinion, that should just mean a few less reps and get off the ice. Get your eyes and hands going, feel good, and get off. Don't be out there practicing bad habits. Proper spacing. I think it's important to let the play finish in certain scenarios and give enough spacing so that the next play can develop. It's not always just boom, boom, boom. Now that said, any goalie coach who insists on that in every scenario in a practice is being unrealistic, in my opinion. I think that the proper spacing is something that should be kept in mind, but there are also 20 other people on the ice that need to get their reps in, and there are going to be some drills where it's just not possible. Shot location. I find a lot of coaches set up drills that all of the shots come from right in the middle and right down Broadway from a good spot to score. And that's just not the reality of hockey. The pucks do get shot from there, but they get shot from everywhere else too. And if you've faced shots just from the middle all week heading into the weekend, the odds are good that you're not going to be as comfortable playing the shots on angle as you would be if you faced a healthy dose of those as well. Allow the rush plays to develop so goalies can work on reads as well as movement and shot stopping. I believe that hockey is a game of patterns. And the more we allow the goalies to read the patterns of attack and to read off the D and the forwards to see how to predict when certain plays are going to come, the better off the goalies are going to be. So we need to allow those rushed plays to develop so that the goalies and the D can then get those good reads and play them accordingly. Include puck play. I believe this is huge for the goalies and the D, because it's something a lot of people, they just assume it's going to be there in the games. And if you don't spend 10, 15 minutes a week running through your reps and running through your handoffs, I think that it's not realistic to expect it to just be there in the games. So how do we make sure goalies are prepared for games? I believe in the role of the sports psychologist. I believe that goalies should start having them at a young age. So that it's just part of the process and part of the team. I don't think it's something that should just be thrown at you when you reach a higher level. I think if it's something that you're comfortable with and have been working on along the way, you'll have a better idea of how to control the controllable and how to handle the things that you can't control. Make sure they've had a proper week of practice. A lot of that was just mentioned above. include the goalies in the team meetings. I think it's really important that we hold the goalies accountable for knowing what our team systems are, what we're trying to do against this certain opponent, and what scenarios are going to potentially come up, whether it be the forecheck, whether it be face-off plays, their PP versus RPK. All of these things are critical information that I believe will make the goalie play better, because they're going to be able to read things better. Do they have anything to add to the opposition goalie's pre-scout? The goalie community is really small. It's amazing how many times we're playing against a goalie and our goalie has skated with that goalie or knows them well and has valuable information to give. Give them time and space to go through their routines, but be sure they understand they are part of the team, so their routines must work within that structure. I say this all the time. Goalies are special, but they're not everything. So it's important that they do warm up in a way that follows along with the team warm up, and then also have time to do some of their own things as well. I don't think it's healthy when a goalie is completely isolated, but I also think they do have unique things that they need to do. So the head coach and goalie coach relationship, I've been very lucky over the years with head coaches. Just the last 3 that I've worked with, John Dean, Curtis Hodgins, and Drew Bannister. I've learned a ton off all 3 of those guys and had good relationships with them, and I'm very thankful for it. And I do know a lot of times head coaches do not treat the goalie coaches with the same level of respect that those guys have me. So I just want to make sure everybody knows how much I appreciate that. So I asked a few coaches just what they look for from their goalie coaches, and some of the things they want. Communication, both with goalies and staff. I believe today there's just no excuse for this. With the amount of technology available to maintain good, strong communication, there's just no excuse for things to fall apart. You can text, you can call, you can FaceTime. There's so many different ways to do it. Balance a relationship between the goalies. There are times where some friction can be created between the goalies, and it's important that you're there to make sure you're managing that. Improve goalies technically within the team structure. Again, I mentioned above that I think the goalies should know the team systems and be aware of how to play within it. I think it's just as important that the goalie coach spends the time to learn team's systems so that they can help the goalies play in a way that works the best within that system. It's critical. If a team plays a 2-on-1 in a certain way and the D are trying to accomplish certain things, it's very important that the goalie is playing the 2-on-1 along those lines and not doing what his home goalie coach told him to do at a clinic when he had no idea what our team was trying to accomplish. Those things have to work together. Commitment. I believe that a lot of goalie coaches spread themselves thin and they try to get to everything and they end up disappointing everybody. Make sure that we are committed and that we are there more than expected, never less. Strong relationship with each goaltender. I put everything into the relationships with the goalies, so I agree with this. Quality pre-scouts that are in line with team language. I know for me, I chart every goal that goes in the OHL, and I have a set of criteria that helps me make a pre-scout for each goalie that's in the OHL. And I've now worked with 2 head coaches in the Sioux that both wanted it laid out slightly differently, and it was on me to make sure they both got what they wanted. Always remember that the goaltenders are a part of the team, and while the position is different, our end goal is not. And again, for me, this comes down to goalies are unique, and they're not special in the sense that they just get to be on their own page and do whatever. It's important that everything we do keeps in mind that they are a part of the team and that they are there to help the team have success within their own success. So what do goalie coaches expect from head coaches? I asked a few friends, and shocker, right at the top, we've got communication again. I find a lot of times there are head coaches that will say, just go take care of the goalies, go fix it. And I don't think that that's conducive to as much success if the head coach voices what they're seeing, voices what they're thinking, and then allows the goalie coach to take it all in and then go do their job. They look for respect. They want their voice heard when appropriate. I believe that my voice is heard in the Sioux, and I'm thankful for that. And I also know that that doesn't mean that every decision is going to go the way that I see it should go, but my voice is heard and I'm respected. Reasonable amount of time to work on specialized skills. I think as the season goes along, it's also important for goalie coaches to understand that you won't always get this time. There are just some stretches and some times where you get less, and you have to make sure that you're adapting and adjusting accordingly. Clear expectations, practices, development, games, office work, etc. I think it should all be laid out and very clear to the goalie coach what's expected so that they have the best chance of following it. And a fair assessment of their performance. There are times where the goalie coach is actually doing quite a lot of work and quite a lot of good work, and the goalie is improving, but it may end up that it's not showing in the games yet. And I believe it's important that we have a realistic assessment of the performance. And that takes us to the question period 1, Murray.
Super. Great first period, Stewie. Great first period.
Thanks.
Yeah, we do have a couple questions that have come through. Appreciate the viewers who are being active and sending them in. You mentioned about home coaches, home goalie coaches, right? I'm sure that's something certainly at your level you have to deal with, and I mean, goaltenders now are starting that at a very young age, where they have personalized coaching, right up through into junior and the higher levels. How are you dealing with that at your level? And do you have any suggestions for coaches viewing this on how they can manage that relationship with a goaltender's home coach?
Yeah, I think it all again comes down to communication and honesty. And I know for me, I have a fairly good network of goalie coaches that I'm in touch with. And if they have worked with one of the goalies that I have from a team perspective, I always reach out to them. I always kind of express where I feel the goalie's game is at and what I plan on working with them, and then get their feedback as to what they've been doing and what they've seen and where they feel that goalie's game is going. And I think that reaching out, that initial reaching out process is important, because then the home goalie coach has a very important role in that goalie's development. And it just shows that it gives you the chance to be on the same page with respect to what that goalie is going to do going forward.
Good stuff. I have another question here, a little bit regarding video, Stewie. What do you use for video with your goaltenders? Do you every goal against or opposing goaltenders? How do you what's your use of video with the goaltenders that you work with?
I find for me, I change that according to what the goalie wants. So I've had goalies that want to go through every one of their touches after every game. I've had goalies that want me to just pick through certain scenarios and go over what I think is important from their game. I've had other goalies that want to give me the clips and have me go through the scenarios that they felt were important in the game. And I find I need to be able to give each goalie what they individually need. And it's on me and that goalie to sort through what that's going to be for them.
And just on top of that, then, I mean, you're the Ontario Hockey League. How much information you provide your goaltenders on the opposing team, for example? You know, where they're scoring their goals from, or style of play, that sort of thing. Is there a lot of information that you're sharing with your guys in preparation for a game?
I think the key for me, we're such a development league that the key for me is to focus on the individual goalie's development first and foremost. So we have our game plan that we're going to use overall, and what we're the key fundamentals that we're trying to stick to overall. One of my big things is keeping your skates. So I want my goalies to have their skates as much as possible when they're in net, whether they're down or up. I want them to have their skates so they can adjust accordingly. Now, there are certainly key things that teams do. If a team is point shot heavy with a lot of traffic when they're on the PP, I make sure to show the goalie a couple of clips from the last time we played them when they were in those scenarios. Perhaps them playing it really well, perhaps one where they could have played it better. And I make sure that they're aware that could happen again. Definitely the forecheck is a big one for me. I want them to have information on what type of forecheck the other team runs so that they can play the puck accordingly. So I don't try to put too much into their head about the individual opponent, but there are key things that I believe that help them and will benefit them. But overall, I think it's important to stick to our structure and what we're trying to accomplish.
Great answer. And the last one here before we'll move on to the next segment, the next period. For teams who maybe don't have access to additional ice through the week for specific goaltending sessions, for example, do you have any suggestion for coaches that are looking to build in time into their weekly practices for goaltending focus?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, but there are ways to do it if you're creative. I found even if it's 5 minutes of a practice where you give me the top of the circles in, I'll get something done within that time that's going to help the goalies. But I find you have to be creative, and it's give and take. So the goalie coach can't just stubbornly insist on having half the ice for 25 minutes of a 50-minute practice. But at the same time, they do have to make sure that they battle and that their voice is heard so that they can do something with the goalies in some way. And we go back to communication. If you talk it through with the head coach, generally the two of you will come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Sounds good. Great answer, Stewie. Thanks a lot. You want to move into the second period here now?
All right. Sounds good. All right. So for the next part here, I just have a few things listed that I believe help create an elite goalie. They're not in any particular order, but they are things that I value. So we've got hockey IQ, consistency and mental toughness, skating. Skating is huge. I don't know any goalie coach that doesn't have that near the top of their list. And for me, it's not just goalie skating, but overall skating. How would this goalie look if they were to play a different position? Positioning, compete. As you move up in levels, the game is flat out hard to play, and you're in more and more scenarios where you have to compete. Hands and feet, right? Can you make saves that aren't just shot at you? You need to be able to use your hands and feet to make saves. Athleticism, what can you do when you're outside of the box? So when the play forces you outside of your structure, what level of athleticism do you have? Similarly, what level of athleticism do you have that helps you maintain your structure better than everyone else? Size, it just is, right? The net's a 4x6 and a goalie who's 5'10", at some point, that goalie has a harder time saving a puck that's going towards their shoulder or whatever than a guy who's 6'2". I compare it kind of to the scene in The Matrix where the agents are dodging all the bullets and everything, and then Trinity comes up with the bullet or the gun right to the agent's head and says, "Dodge this," and blows his head away. And there's a key spot where a goalie is facing a shot where how fast you are is no longer out of the equation, and you need to fill space. And the harsh, cold reality is a goalie who's 6'2" is going to have an easier time filling space than the goalie who's 5'10" most of the time. There are exceptions to that in the way goalies play, but most of the time that holds true. Puck handling in the Sioux, it's huge for us because we're a puck possession team, and generally the first part of good puck possession is the puck gets dumped in, our goalie's on it quickly, they make a good quick play, we keep the puck, and away we go. And it's a critical part of it. So I'm going to start a new share here just because I have a video. Oh, let me see here. All right. So here we've got to play with just some good hockey IQ and positioning. This play happens a lot, right? Where the shot is coming from the point and the goalie has to read the center tip option. And you'll watch here, a lot of goalies would just push hard to the right on this, but watch the goalie just nudge over, makes a nice clean save on it, and good repositioning. Next, we've just got some compete and athleticism. So now we're outside our box a little bit here. I mean, he's in what we'd call a VH, which I think was a smart read on this. But now watch how much he fights as this play goes across. Look at his left foot battling, right? This is the reality of net jams and the days, you know, where the net's off and the play's over. It just doesn't happen anymore. The nets are on, the guys are battling, and they're trying to push the goalie in the net, and the goalie has to compete like crazy to not let it happen. Just more skating here. Again, always has his feet. So here, hockey IQ, reading this off the boards, right? He's competing, and it's good athleticism to be able to do it. And again, big slide to the left. And here's a really, really smart play. Puck shot 5-hole. He puts that rebound right where he wants, which is in the middle in this scenario. And away we go. This is a pretty good save here. It's a shot or pass option. Battles across. Big save. Again, it's not a picture perfect save. That I actually had a teaching clip on it for him. But the point is, he stayed in the play and he battled and he utilized his skill to make it. Would I love him to be over there in a perfect butterfly? Sure. But in that scenario, it may not have been realistic to expect it. So there's more good hockey IQ here. He's battling hard here. The game's fast. Reading the rush. Simple stick save, controls that puck, puts it in the corner. Puck handling here, right? Reading the forecheck, holding, making the simple play. And you have to be able to skate to puck handle. This puck handle here, if you watch closely, he gets out quickly. This thing pops between his feet right now. Doesn't panic, stays calm on it because he has the natural skating and natural puck handling ability that he's worked hard on. He's able to still make a play. Here he's read that this is a 1-on-2, so you can see how aggressive his positioning is. Now he's just going to be patient and wait this out and make a good save. But because the rush is in our favor, it's critical that he not just sink back on this. Here, this is a good battle. A lot going on in this clip. But again, the athleticism and the fight, along with his structure, keep him in that play. right back to the post on the puck off the wall, right? Recognizing the danger. So here's a team that often sent guys hard on us, so he just rims it quickly. Again, watch the read here. Making sure he skates well, in position, simple save. So here this pass is going to go across, and he recognizes that the pass option is a right-hand shot, so they can't one-time it, and he's going to skate this out and make a good save. Most goalies in the OHL would slide that. He skates it out, and he gets rewarded by having his feet set, and he's able to make this save. Grabs this puck, good skating and puck handling. Away we go. Good read and big save here, and stays right on it and keeps going. Not patting himself on the back, keeps going. Last one here. Again, this goes to the point of paying attention to the pre-scouts. This year, Kitchener sent too hard on us. And you see before the game, we had said to the goalie, they're going to send too hard on you. Make sure you get out there quickly and make a quick play with the puck. And he does just that, and we're gone. Just get that. Oh no. Sorry, I closed my presentation on you guys. Sorry about that. All right. So the goalie and goalie coach relationship. For me, relationships are everything when it comes to working with the goalies. I have both in terms of private goalie coaching and team goalie coaching. Get invited to the high school graduations, to weddings. I'm still in touch with goalies from 20 years ago that I worked with 20 years ago. I put a lot of value in creating a good, strong relationship with each goalie that I work with. What do goalies expect from goalie coaches? Again, constant communication. In today's day and age, I know I've already said it, but there's no excuse to not be in constant contact with your goalies. After games, when I'm not in the Sioux, our goalies will have a text message from me by the time that they get back to their stall after the game. If they had their phone there, which they don't, they would have a text from me, either saying, great job today, shake that one off, get a good night's sleep, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Whatever it is, they always have something from me. Commitment and hard work. For me, if I'm going to demand it of my goalies, it's important that they know I'm putting it in. A good lesson for me on that, my first year in the Sioux, I was like 235 pounds and demanding that the goalies were putting in work in the gym and that they were in top physical condition. I took a good look in the mirror that summer and changed my approach to that. I'm still not in the best shape, but I now weigh under 200 pounds and am able to have it so they see me putting in the work in the gym. Fair and honest assessment of performance. I know we've already talked about that, but I think it's important that we eliminate environment as much as possible, but be honest with what our goalies can and can't do. A development plan with an open-minded approach. No goalie coach knows everything. We should be learning from our goalies as they learn from us, and we should be willing to reach out to other goalie coaches to help us through scenarios with our goalies. Don't get stuck. Be willing to learn and be open-minded, and you'll be better for your goalies. Clear expectations, lay it out, and stick to it. The season can often have us kind of going in different directions, but make sure you lay out those expectations and that you stick to them. Loyalty. The goalies need to know that you have their backs. I think this is critical. Sometimes the goalies need to use us as sounding boards, but at the same time, we need to know when that line has been crossed so that the goalie is saying something we need to hand off to either an assistant coach or a head coach. An understanding of their game and how they need to play in order to be the best version of them. I think some goalie coaches will take a goalie and try to turn that goalie into what that goalie coach thinks they should be, without considering what that goalie needs to be in order to be the best version of themselves. One of the things I pride myself on is, if you took a look at the 5 best goalies that I've ever coached, none of them look the same, and you'd never know any of them were coached by the same guy. What do goalie coaches expect from goalies? Again, communication, right? Respond to text messages in a timely manner, calls, etc. Commitment and hard work. Make sure you're putting in the time. Fair and honest assessment of performance. I want that from my goalies as well. Where if I'm not meeting my standards or the standards that we've set, I want them to be able to communicate that to me. An open-minded approach and loyalty and trust. Again, we go back to that scenario where each goalie typically has multiple goalie coaches in their family of development, and it's important that the team goalie coach has a level of loyalty and trust where you're going to work together moving forward. Now, things that I believe to look for in a goalie coach. I think it's important to be present and a bridge for the coach and the goalies. It's a critical part of our job, and it's something that if you're unable to do, you likely can't be a good team goalie coach. Develop healthy relationships with each goalie. Again, relationships are everything. The goalies need to trust you. You need to trust them. Understand how each goalie learns. Some goalies learn by seeing it in video. Some goalies learn by grinding it out on the ice. Some goalies learn by just talking about it. Know what has each goalie tick and be able to give them what they need from you. Modern approach to both the position and teaching. I think it's important that we stay modern with what the position is doing and how to teach. I learn every year more and more and more about how to teach. It's a critical part of our job. Set expectations on goalies and themselves. Team first. This is one thing I find. If the goalies isolate and the goalie coach isolates with them, next thing you know, we're just worried about what we're doing and we lose sight of what the team needs us to do. Know the development, maintenance, and mental side. So when we're working with goalies during the season, we're trying to develop their skills. We're trying to make sure that they can succeed in the games, and we want to make sure they're mentally sharp. All 3 of those things, the goalie coach has a huge role in. No excuses for the goalie coach or the goalies. At the end of the day, we are all accountable for what we do, and we need to make sure that we are honest with ourselves about that. Some warning signs in a goalie coach. So for me, I think the game adapts really quickly, and if a goalie coach is stuck in their ways, it's not going to go well. Coach who bashes all other goalie coaches. I come across this a lot, where a goalie coach has nothing good to say about any other goalie coach. For me, stay away from that guy. Coach who claims to know it all and can fix all. I just think this is like snake oil salesmen, right? They come in, they think they can fix everything, and at the end of the day, they know deep down that they can't. A coach who is not all in. So if you're speaking with a coach about coming to work with your team and they're unsure if they can get to this and I might be able to do that, and just move on to the next coach. We want someone who's committed. Coach who wants to take over and is too aggressive. If a coach comes in and they're going to be talking to both assistant coaches about what they need to do and the head coach about what they need to do and everything, and they're overstepping all the time, it's not going to work. The coach who is around everything but does nothing. So there are a lot of goalie coaches that are around other good goalie coaches, and they're at this function and they're at that function, but they don't actually do any goalie coaching. Make sure that you're aware of that goalie coach and stay away from them. The coach who is an Instagram hero. A lot of goalie coaches use social media and Instagram particularly to push their product, and that's fine. But they need to be aware, well, that may give them a lot of fame, and success within the actual goalies and minor hockey community. The hockey community and the professional hockey community don't really think very much of the Instagram hero goalie coaches. So the last thing that I have to go over here with respect to this is some statistical stuff. So one of the things that I'm big on is expected save percentage versus actual save percentage. So I've developed a bit of an analytics system where every shot from location and context has an expected save percentage. And that comes from me charting 5 years of data within our league of both our goalie and the opponent's goalies. And I've come up with an expected save percentage on each category of shot. Shot location and pre-shot movement, two very important things. I believe pre-shot movement is more important than shot location. A goalie in transition is a goalie in trouble. Shot quality, a lot of times no two shots are made the same. So it's important to look into the quality of the shot that the goalie had. So sometimes a goalie can have 23 shots against, but it was actually a tough night if you look into the shot quality. The goal is to remove environment and evaluate the goaltender performance. Again, that 23 shot game where there was 5 plays where the goalie just had no prayer, we need to take that into account. So here are just some of the categories that I use and the expected save percentage. So clear sight, feet set outside the house. This is the most common shot in hockey. It's outside the house. The goalie has their feet set and they can see it. And basically the expected save percentage on that is about 98. Clear sight, feet set inside the house. So now we're inside and it goes down to 921. When I started tracking this stuff, I have to be honest, I thought that number would be a bit lower. But location matters less than the goalie moving. So now the goalie moving and the puck is shot from inside the house, we go down to 811. So now we're in the area where, the puck is going in basically 1 out of 5. Rebound off an outside the house shot, 763. Rebound off an inside the house shot, 733. This caught me a bit off guard. I thought that these two would differ more than they do, but essentially if the goalie's in one spot and the puck is being whacked at off a rebound, it doesn't matter where the shot was from. A slot line feed, so that's a shot across the center line and immediately shot, goes down to 67. So these are just some of the things that I use to evaluate how my goalies are doing. And I have many more categories than that, to be clear.
Great job, Stu. Great segment there. We've had a lot of questions coming in. I know we're not going to get to all of them, but I'll throw a few at you, okay? And then we'll move along here. Multiple questions about how you, what are some of the things you do differently based on goalie size? So if you have a big goaltender, someone 6'3", 6'4", versus somebody who's at the 6 foot level, like do you do different things based on that?
Yeah, I think again, it's my job to evaluate each goalie within what they're capable of doing and what their natural skill sets is, and to help them come up with a way that they're going to be the best versions of them. So some of I can't say black and white what I would do differently with them, but I can say, a goalie who's 6 foot is going to have less of those I got you scenarios than the guy or the girl who's 6'3". The goalie who's 6 foot needs to make sure that they respect the fact that there's net open in scenarios where the goalie who's 6'3" can just cover all the net. So they have less times where they just know they have space covered. So they need to play some scenarios differently to respect that fact and be willing to make adjustments through those scenarios.
What about the relationship between the two goalies on a team? Like the how do you manage that as a goalie coach?
Whenever I work like in the Sioux, for example, I immediately try to establish that we're all in it together, and that we're all in it together to help our team succeed moving forward. And whatever role you have within the goalies, you have value, and you are helping our team to have that level of success. So my first year there, we had an 18-year-old returning goalie who was the starter, and a 17-year-old rookie goaltender, undrafted, named Matt Villalta, who was actually in all those clips. And we, as the year went on, Villalta developed and developed and developed, and our starting goalie, Joseph Raymakers, was playing and playing well. And they eventually got to the point where it went from, one was here and one was here, to it was like this. And they were really close to each other. And we ended up in a scenario where Villalta started the playoffs, and then Raymakers came in through the playoffs and finished the playoffs for us playing quite well. So that was a year where I had to make sure that the goalies both knew that they both had value in our team, and all their work was worthwhile. And it ended up being so, because at the end of the year, there was a switch in the playoffs right during one of the rounds, and we ended up winning that round with phenomenal play by our goalie. And if he pouted or gave up, or I gave him the messaging just that the other guy was taking the job and that's that, then he may not have been able to step into that series and do what he did.
Excellent. Listen, we're right up at the top of the hour, so we'll move on to the closing segment here. I know you had a few additional things just to touch base on. Just let the viewers know that we'll provide your email address out to the viewers today, and you've been good enough to encourage them if they have any more questions to follow up with you. So let's move on to your last kind of summarization segment, Stewie, and then we'll close it off for this.
Sounds good. Thanks, Murray. Okay, so just if there are any fellow goalie coaches watching that are looking to move up, I just have some thoughts based on my experience. So team goalie coach versus private goalie coach is very different, and your priorities are very different. When you're a private goalie coach, you're just looking out for the interests of that one goalie. When you're a team goalie coach, you have multiple goalies and the team where you need to focus. You need to know the difference and divide that role. You can't do everything for everyone. Learn to say no. When you try to do everything and get to everything, you're just letting everybody down. Communication, once again. Learn the team dynamic, the coaches, the players, the management. Like, take some time to watch and see how it all works together and where your role fits into that individual team. It's important that you do that so you don't become that square peg in a round hole. You're always heard and your opinion counts. So this is one area a lot of goalie coaches speak their mind. The end decision doesn't go their way and they feel like they weren't heard. One of my favorite coaches I ever worked with was Curtis Hodgins, and I don't think anybody went against what I was speaking and to the amount he did. We worked together for 6 years, and we always did it respectfully. I always knew my voice was heard, and my feelings were never hurt as a result. Don't stray into areas you don't add value. Staying quiet is okay. Just because you're in the room doesn't mean you have to be speaking. It's okay to just take it all in if anything you say doesn't apply. Don't worry about others in the industry getting jobs. Control what you can. This is something we tell our goalies all the time. Control what you can control. If you focus on where you are and doing a good job, the good things will come. It is never personal until you make it so. A head coach is always making decisions that they truly believe are for the best of the team. And they are not just going against you, and it's not personal. just accept that sometimes the decisions go that way, and we just move on. So just some final thoughts here, right? Remember that backwards bike. Don't get stuck in your learning. Be willing to learn new things and adapt how you look at it. Goalies are human. All sides need to communicate. It takes a team to help goalies reach their full potential. We want to work together and have no egos. The head coach often determines these relationships. And when evaluating goalies, remove emotion and environment. Again, I compare it to what many couples do in marriage, right? You reach that emotional point, you take the step back, see what's actually going on, and then you're able to come through the solution from a calmer place. Goalies and goalie coaches need time on and off the ice. Think of them in your practice plan. Again, for head coaches, goalie coaches can't just step in and take over and have every single drill go from the position the goalie needs. We understand that, but we do hope that you keep us in mind when you are developing your practice plans. And finally, statistics are only as useful as the approach we take to use them. It's important that you understand what the statistic actually means and how you can change things going forward to help improve your team by using the statistics. So that's it for me. I want to thank everybody for coming in today. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank Murray and Wes for setting all this up. It's an amazing thing. So thanks.
Well, thanks, Stewie. What a great presentation this morning. Really appreciate your time and expertise and passion. It's not an easy area, obviously, for non-goalie coaches, and everybody likes to learn a little bit more about that position and how to manage it. So you did a fantastic job, and for those watching, just a reminder that these are taped and archived. You can go to the Niagara Hockey Coaches Seminar website and access those. And again, with some of the questions, we'll provide Dan's email address, and if you have additional questions, you can reach out to Dan directly. Our next presentation, our next webinar is Monday, the 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern, a little later Eastern on Monday. Brad Flynn, assistant coach with the Red Deer Rebels, is going to be talking about some defenseman development. So hopefully we'll see many people back on Monday. Thanks again, Stewie, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. Stay safe, everyone.